Hello, so I'm just going to give a little quick intro to some of the things I do and little tips and tricks I've got. This is completely off the cuff, so we'll see how it goes. So the first thing that I find useful is to have a template that I use. I've got sketchnote fat border here in the middle, and what I tend to do is select that and duplicate it, so I have a second one that's ready to go. So now I open that up. So here I have a sketch note ready to go. What I've got are a few layers already set up. I've got a background colour there, which you can change. A little thin border there, fat border, so I can turn that on and off. Gives it a nice sort of professional finish. Sometimes I move that layer to the top of the stack at the end, just in case I've been a bit shonky with my colouring. I have two different types of signatures here that I can turn off and on depending on where I'm going to be sharing the note. You don't have to do that. Maybe it's a bit pretentious. I do it. There you go. And I've got two layers here already, colouring and ink. So I tend to ink things in, write words in, and then draw colours around them. As I go, I'll add in separate layers. So let's have a look at that in practice. So I've made a set of pens here, some of which I've copied from elsewhere, some of which I've made from scratch. But you can use whatever brush you like. So here is, in the name of them, I give them a size so I can remember what size I want to use with my sketch notes. So under 7, 10% for the wedge nib, usually around 15 for the chonk marker, but it does depend. So back to the lettering brush. So I might say, here is a pithy insight. Wow. And then sometimes I add an extra layer, which I call, rename icons, just for my little drawings. So they're separate from the sort of written bit and they're separate from the colouring bit. So I'm going to move that just below my ink layer. So on icons, I've already got a brush selected, so I might draw a picture of somebody having an insight. There we go. They've got a brain. Or maybe they're having a light bulb insight. Ding, ding, yep, whoop, whoop, whoop. Wow. So let's add some colour to that. So I switch colours. Now, one tip I've recently started doing, which I haven't done here, is if you want to get a palette for your sketch note, you can import palettes, you can make your own palettes, but what can be useful is grab yourself a nice fairly fat painting brush and say, okay, I want some colours that coordinate nicely with each other or contrast nicely with each other. So this sketch note is going to have this blue, and so I pick my colouring layer, and I put a little blob of the blue up there, which I can sample later, and I'm going to use this purple, like that, and let's get a contrasty yellow. So those are my three colours, so I can use the side section to select a colour. So I'm pressing, unfortunately you can't see this because the screencast won't record my presses, but it's over on the left hand side. Let me move like here. There we go, that bit there. I'll just delete that. That's where you press to get the ink dropper. So on the colouring layer, I want the yellow, so I'm tapping the side thing and then selecting yellow from up there, and I might make, that's a bit big, so make the brush a bit smaller, and I put some yellow in there, and then what often works is to put borders around things, so I'll add another layer, which is my fancy borders, and I use a different brush. I'm going to use my wedge nib, and let's give it a purple boundary, so I'm eyedroppering on that purple. So I draw a nice little line around. If you want to make it neat, you can press and hold it and it will automatically straighten up. Oh, that's so good, look at that. Lovely, lovely, lovely. And then on the colouring layer, I've got a few greys up at the top here, and I have a chonk marker, which I called it. It's a brush I made, and I draw around the edge of the shape there. Some other tip I've got here is in the settings, I have got the drawing guide on, very important. That makes it easier to draw neatly. And also, one of my preferences is with, now where is it? I think it's in gesture controls. Disable touch actions. Finger touches will only perform gestures. I've got that on because I use my pencil exclusively, and I used to get dots all over the place from accidentally touching the screen. So making it so only your brush can do updates is the main thing. So in a nutshell, that is how I draw my notes. I will go through switching layers, writing things in ink, and in the correct brush. So it's good to switch between brushes. Hello! And drawing little icons. And putting borders around things. Grabbing the purple colour again. Yep. Press and hold, and it goes straight there. Selecting a grey from the palette, and going to the colouring, selecting a different brush, drawing a little shadow around that, maybe a bit of a shadow around that hand. Now that's a bit big, that shadow, so I use 2 fingers to undo it. Make the brush smaller and do that a bit neater. Beware the 2-finger undo, because it's so easy to get in the habit of just trying to make things better and better and better. So I hope that's helped a little bit, just to give a few hints and tips. When you're ready to save it, you click on that little, press on that little spanner, and you share it. I often share it to PNG. So that's the first sort of set of tips. There's other things I do, but hopefully that will get you going with some form of sketchnoting. Good luck!